It is a pleasure to welcome to the program Tim Drea. He is the president of the Illinois AFL-CIO, and he's here to talk about the Workers' Right Amendment. This is on the ballot, Tim, isn't it? In 6 days?
6 days, that's correct. Yeah.
Okay, all right. So what is the Workers' Rights Amendment?
Well, the Workers' Rights Amendment will amend the Bill of Rights of the Illinois Constitution to give workers the fundamental right to collectively bargain, the fundamental right to a safe workplace, no diminishment of safety, worker rights in current statute, and prohibit, preserve the right to collective bargaining in Illinois.
So this is basically a way to inhibit what we've seen really over the past 10, 15 years. It's existed down south quite a bit, but in Wisconsin, I guess it was 10, 12 years ago, Scott Walker, largely funded by the Koch brothers and the Americans for Prosperity, started this almost like experiment where they're going to see how we can destroy things like the safety net in Wisconsin, the healthcare in Wisconsin, and the right for workers to organize. And so this sort of heads it off, right? Will you talk about that dynamic?
Yeah, exactly. Well, in 2014, the voters of Illinois elected Bruce Rauner, who wanted to be another Scott Walker. And he came in and he held the state budget hostage for 2.5 years until he could try to get a worker-friendly majority legislature to bust unions, especially public employee unions. And the leadership of each house of the General Assembly said, no, we're not going to do that. And they finally broke Bruce Rauner on what he called his turnaround agenda. And his turnaround agenda was, to inhibit, place restrictions on public employee collective bargaining, lower prevailing wage, decrease the minimum wage, and a whole slew of just different worker safety laws that have been passed over the last 120 years. Illinois has some very, very strong safety laws on the books, and mainly because we've had horrific accidents in the coal mines and other places throughout our history. So we have some really, really good statutes, and he wanted to roll those back. And now is not a time to be rolling back. And then we hit the pandemic, and people who work for a living went to work and didn't have the proper PPE and things like that, but they still showed up. And we had literally people dying on the job through COVID. And it's like, we can't do this anymore. We need constitutional guarantees that this can't happen.
All right. And to be clear, this is going to put it in the Constitution. And it's going to make it extremely, it's not going to make it impossible for it to be reversed, but it's going to make it extremely difficult, right? For, a fluky right winger who gets in there and they may leverage these things and they can't turn this stuff around. I mean, I think people I don't know, Illinois is one of the epicenters of unionization in this country, right? I mean, the Haymarket riots that took place there, 150 years, somewhere around there. Mm-hmm. So give me your sense of the thing I like about this too, is it in the same way that Wisconsin was being set up to be sort of like a model of how you destroy the social fabric that they were hoping to export to other states. And to some extent they've done this. With some measures, this could function as sort of the antidote to that.
And Sam, what I really like about this is we're going to the voters. We're not going to legislators. We're going directly to the voters and saying, do you want, workplace safety in the Constitution? Do you want the right to collectively bargain, to come together with your coworkers and have a voice for change? So we're going to the voters and asking them, rather than legislators who may or not be controlled by billionaire interest. So that's what the Constitution is a social contract with the voters and the politicians. And we're going to the voters and saying, is this what you want your state to be? And
right.
the enthusiasm and everything we've gotten is just unprecedented, and it's exciting. It's exciting to be a part of this.
I want to get into some of the specifics of it, just, cover some of the specific points of this, but I also just want to stay with this idea for just one more moment, which it's going to be fascinating to see. I mean, we don't have nearly the union density that we've had historically. I mean, we've lost that over the course of the past 30 or 40 years, but it's going to be fascinating to see what this does across the entire ticket. Across the entire, all the elections that are happening, because if this brings out union folks en masse and their spouses, their kids, their friends, and this becomes also a model for other states when we head into a presidential election in terms of like turnout.
Yes, absolutely. I couldn't agree more. You said it very, very succinctly. Again, there's a lot of enthusiasm, and from all parts of the state, from all sectors of the movement. And our message is we're about 18% of the workforce in Illinois. So another thing, we are working hard on this campaign. Not only 18% of the workforce, but 100% of the workforce is, somebody that leaves home in the morning or before their shift starts and, kisses a loved one goodbye and say, I'm going to work. This amendment protects that person. And so it is, we're just telling everybody, your mother, your brother, your cousin, your neighbor, everybody, get out and vote for yourselves.
And we should say that the states that, I mean, industries that have some unionization, regardless whether it's across the industry, on balance, everyone makes more money. States that don't have right to work, so-called right to work laws, everybody on balance makes more money, up to like 15%, if I'm not mistaken. Yes. All right, so just what are some of the key, like, this makes it protects the right to unionize. What does it do in terms of like agency fees? Because over the past 5 or 6 years, we've seen the Supreme Court just eviscerate unions in any way they can. What does it do for things like agency fees and negotiations and what?
Well, that's a great question. One we fielded quite a bit. For public employees, people that work for the state of Illinois, the city of Chicago, or the city of Springfield, or wherever, they will still be under the Janus decision, which overturned 40 years of precedent, a unanimous decision in 1983 that was overturned by the Trump Supreme Court. So they are basically right to work, but there are protections in the Illinois Labor Relations Act on what they can negotiate for working conditions and hours and benefits and things like that. So they'll preserve that right, even though they don't have to pay the agency fees under Janus. They'll still be protected on what they can negotiate for, which in Wisconsin, what they did is they just took away the ability basically to negotiate for so many things that, it was basically, it's very, very hard to improve the lives of working families in Wisconsin because of that. So that's the agency fees is we preserve the rights for public employees to negotiate. In the private sector, we have just the fundamental right for somebody to engage in collective bargaining, but we also have, things like the minimum wage and workers' comp, unemployment. We won't have any, workplace safety laws. I was a coal miner, so there was a lot of workplace safety laws involved in the mines. Those cannot be diminished. And it's just so important that, workplace safety is just, if somebody, as I mentioned earlier, has somebody's leaving for work and they kiss their loved one goodbye, we certainly want that worker to come back and say, I'm home, and kiss them again. Right. Going to work is one thing. We love to create jobs, but we want people to come home even more.
Yep. All right. So Tim, where can people get more information on this if they want to help? We still got like 6 days going out there telling their neighbors about it. If they want to get more information on it, where can people go?
We go to Illinois AFL-CIO.org, ILAFL-CIO.org, and that will direct you to the Workers' Rights Amendment webpage, and there's plenty of information there.
All right. We will put a link to that at majority.fm as well as the podcast and YouTube description. Tim Drea, president of the Illinois AFL-CIO. Good luck. I think this is a really important amendment, not just for Illinois, but I think this is something that can be one of those pieces of legislation or referendums that can really both protect workers' rights and build upon workers' rights in around the country. Really appreciate your time.
Thank you, Sam. Best wishes.
All right. Bye-bye.